Welcome to Property Playbook. We're your host, Elena Saraditas
and Erica Reddy-Chiquette.
And today we're going to talk about all things real estate, as always. But why did we start this? Why are we doing a podcast? Why now?
So I think that's an amazing question. And honestly, I'm so excited about this podcast. I think we're going to bring, I want to say, a different angle, a different spin to kind of the world of real estate podcasts and really talk about what it's like to enter the market, build equity from the ground up. I mean, in your case, really climb that property ladder, deal with investors, deal with first-time buyers, deal with first-time. I mean, it's everything on the ground if you're a buyer and a seller.
And I think what the benefit is to consumers too is you can see two sides of the coin here. You can see the multi-level investor that's purchasing the first property to the 10th property, and you see the kind of climbing property ladder that you've been so great at, like how to buy your first condo, how to flip it into your dream home. So I think this is going to be a great content that we're going to be putting out that just has to do with all things real estate and how to gain financial freedom through it.
Totally. And I think it's one of those things where if you're a buyer or thinking about buying, this is great. If you're a seller and thinking about selling, this is great. But honestly, if you just love real estate and kind of want to have a new idea, something fun, something to spark maybe a dinner conversation, because who doesn't talk about real estate at dinner, coffee, or all day long?
We might be the most fun people at a party or the worst, but definitely have you never been to an event where someone's been like, oh, what do you do for a living? And then you say real estate, and the first question is, how's the market?
100%. How's the market?
Everyone wants to know. This is a very hot topic because it is one of the biggest investments most people are going to make in their lives. You might
say it is. I mean, I say to people all the time, real estate is the largest, in my opinion, financial investment you will ever make. So you need to take it super seriously. And there's so many elements and aspects to it.
But the best part about it is you could really learn how to propel yourself and your life and your you can become financially free because of real estate. So as much as people stress, what if I move? What if I do this? Why do I hold on to a property? I don't want to be a landlord. If you play the game properly, because this is like real life Monopoly we play every day. If we play the game properly, you can become financially free through real estate.
Totally.
And again, it comes down to age as well. The sooner you can get into owning a property, the sooner you should do it. Totally. And it's because if you think about it, average mortgage rate, 20 to 35 years, people are holding mortgages. Let's say the property is paid off and you have some investors. At the end of the day, that property is paid off and you have someone paying you every month.
Totally.
You're free.
Totally. And I mean, I'm so proud of some of my clients that come to me and go, you know what, Erica, I'm ready to buy again. And guess what? You're not selling my initial condo. And I'm like, this is incredible. Incredible.
Talk them out of selling. They're like, you're the only real estate agent I've ever talked to that literally says, why are you selling?
Yeah.
And that's my number one question to every single person that calls me. Give me a good reason why you're selling.
Yeah.
Because if the reason isn't good, don't sell, hold.
100%.
But if you have a reason for selling, you need to sell this property to be able to go to your next property, then let's have a conversation on how to get you to the next place.
Totally.
If you need to sell this property because there's another investment opportunity out there for you, no problem. We can sell it. But have a good reason for selling. We don't just sell to sell.
Exactly. So on the topic of selling, let's dive in. So we're here in obviously Toronto and we are in the month of February. So let's dive in. What are we seeing on the ground in real estate? Let's talk live.
Okay, let's talk about all the headlines out in the media because they're all saying the market is back and everything's exploding and the sky is falling and there's multiple offers left, right, and center. But let's talk about what's really happening.
And the numbers have just come out. So this is the perfect time to dive into it.
A ton of demand right now, but there's a lack of inventory.
Yeah.
So why is there multiple offers? Because there's no inventory.
Yeah.
So if there was more inventory, would the same amount of offers be present? Who knows?
I'd say no. And I think what's also interesting is, yes, we don't have as much inventory. We are technically seeing more buyer demand, but we're actually not seeing price increase month over month. And I think that's what's really important here, because I think people are seeing the headlines of 85 offers, 19 offers. Oh my gosh, you go on social media, every single agent is posting how many offers that their buyers are competing in or their sellers are getting. And I kind of step back and go, but let's actually pull this apart, because at the end of the day, yes, the offers are coming in. Yes, the buyers are there, but the prices aren't skyrocketing. So I think the big message, truthfully, to a buyer is don't be scared. It's easy to get scared. Those headlines are terrifying.
It's not just that. There's a difference between, it's a marketing strategy. Listing your property 100%. For an offer date and for multiple offers is a marketing strategy. There's a difference between listing it 5 to 10% below market value.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between grossly underpricing it and creating a feeding frenzy where you have lineups out the door, you have 1,010,000 people trying to offer on the property, and then eventually it sells for what it sells for. But a property is only worth what a buyer is willing to pay. And that's what people have to remember. No one's out there trying to lose their shirt over getting a property.
No.
They are looking at it strategically.
Yeah.
And yes, now we have open offers in play, and we'll touch on that too. But the funny thing is in the last couple offer nights, I'm not sure if you're noticing this too, sellers now have the ability to open it up.
Yep.
None of the ones that I've been in the last couple days have opened it.
I agree. I mean, I feel like anything, when there's something new emerging in the market, and I mean, I cannot wait to have Nathan Dart on to talk more about final offer and kind of the open offer process. That's our next guest, by the way. The interesting thing about it is I think like anything, we have a bit of this kind of herd mentality, and you need someone to kind of step out of that herd to lead the charge. And I don't really know that anyone's sure that they want to do that. And I think part of it is understanding, what does an open offer process look like in our marketplace? And how does that play out if you're a seller? Is it something you should be doing, something that you shouldn't be doing? Is it terrifying? Do you have an agent that can even guide you through it? What does it look like? I mean, I think it's a really interesting thing to be emerging, and I think it propels the market, and I think it benefits the seller, truthfully, but I think it's a tough one to know because people just haven't seen it.
I think it benefits the seller in a certain transaction.
But wouldn't you say that everything is somewhat niche? I don't think in our market
it's not a one size fits all.
Exactly, and I don't think you can ever broadly paint our marketplace with one size fits all.
So the whole open offer situation, and I do think some agents are scared of the new and are not thinking about opening it up, but I also think strategically, if the offers are very close, why wouldn't you open it up?
Absolutely.
And we've had this conversation before, you know we have, and it has to do with, if I'm 2K below you, and now I know your number, am I not going to increase?
For sure, because I have certainty, right? Does any buyer want to be blindly bidding going, am I leading the pack by an exponential landslide? Who wants that? Nobody. But if you know, to your point, that you're tight and it's almost like a race to the finish line, it's like that live auction when it's like the paddles are going up and you're like, oh my God, I need to raise my paddle. Okay, again. I can't let you get it. That's not happening.
Yeah, but if the offers are not close, why would you as a seller open it? Like, you wouldn't. And statistically, and we'll talk about this more when Nathan Dart comes on.
Absolutely.
But when you have a multiple offer situation and someone knows the number, like you can look at any city, at any country that is doing open offers, the moment they opened it up and that became the new standard, the prices actually increased. And it's because now that you know what someone else is willing to pay, you've upped your game.
For sure. Because I think, and I mean, I've faced this so many times in blind situations where a buyer kind of goes, well, how am I going to know? How am I going to know if I'm overpaying? And the real answer is, you're not going to know. And a bit back to your point on, a property is only worth what a buyer is willing to pay. I mean, this implies, but to what regard? I mean, we can look at comparables, we can try and figure out what something's worth, but emotions sometimes get the better of people.
You're right. The emotion part is a huge factor of what people are willing to offer.
Yeah.
But I think it boils down to what agent are you working with? Because you got to remember, when it's a closed offer situation, and like you and I are professionals in the industry, we're looking at the comps and we're telling our client we're entering danger zone. If you go any higher than this, there's a chance this does not appraise. We were looking at it cautiously. It wasn't fully blind, unless you were working with someone that doesn't know what to do to make sure, you get the right property at the right price and it will appraise. Like, you're going in blind. But for professionals, in the world in general, in real estate in general, we were all cautiously moving up. We weren't throwing caution to the side and just throwing whatever number out there. I do remember there was markets that we were doing that. But in the markets that we were very, very clearly establishing what it is that, like, we're in the gray zone.
Totally.
At this moment, there is a chance you're going to have to open up your wallet and take money out and pay for the difference.
Yeah.
And like,
but you have to understand that. That's so important, because sometimes, it's really, I think, especially in multiples. And again, I think it's going to be interesting to see how these multiples play out. But if we're looking at the present market where you are seeing some multiples come back into the market and you're seeing that, I think the most important takeaway, in my opinion, for anybody in multiples as a buyer is to step back and go, what is it actually worth? Let's start with that. Forget everything else. Everything else, in my opinion, doesn't matter, because we need to be looking at the true value of the property before we do anything else. Then we can figure out if we tweak our closing or tweak conditions or tweak terms or tweak the deposit. But you should never be paying, in my opinion, more than the house is worth unless you genuinely feel you need to and you want to. And that's, I think, the really important part, is not losing sight of market value.
Because we're talking about market value and not paying more, I'm going to bring up this topic, even though I think we might get a little hate on it. Recently, you went to put in an offer on a property and then you kind of rethought it. You're buying for yourself right now.
Yes.
And I remember you coming to me and looking at the comps and being like, am I crazy? Is it listed $1 million more than what it should be listed at?
And I think the interesting thing is, I mean, when you sit back, I mean, I'm sitting back obviously presently as a buyer in this market. And I think, like anything, when I go in and try and advise a client, I advise them as if it was my money. And so I am trying to secure the absolute best possible price for that purchaser. And so sitting in the shoes of a true purchaser, I mean, you are like down to the crown molding and the doorknobs. And I mean, things you shouldn't even be comparing or trying to place value on because you really want to make sure that you are getting a great price and a good investment. And it's everything. I mean, everything, rolls into it. But I think, having those tough conversations, really understanding the nitty gritty, not being afraid of a list price, which thank you for highlighting that. I am not, I think is so important, but there's so many factors. There's obviously what we think it's worth as a buyer, what the agent thinks it's worth as a buyer's agent, what the seller thinks it's worth as a seller, and what the listing agent thinks it's worth as a listing agent. So, I mean, that's 4 parties
that all have to agree.
100%.
So what I like to do, and this is on either end. So like if I'm working with buyers, we do a caravan tour day where I fully put them in my car.
A caravan tour. Oh my. Okay.
I put them in my car and we go see everything in their price point so they understand the true value of what kind of home we're going to see. It's going to take a couple hours. I tell them we can go grab coffee. It's going to be great. We can grab some snacks and lunch. But like, come next time, come. And I've actually done this with some of my junior agents and they're like, oh my God, this works so well. Because I do one day with them and they're submerged. It's like submergent therapy. They now know what other properties are going to sell for, what other properties sold for, because they're looking at all those properties we just saw.
Totally.
They now know fully what they actually want.
Yeah.
And when they see it, they don't hesitate about price because they're like, you know what? I saw 10 options at this number.
Yeah.
This is clearly worth this.
Yes.
So it's a submersion therapy. They have to understand what the current market value of that property is. Now, on the other side, on the seller end, if I have a seller with unrealistic expectations, I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I say, let's go for a drive around your block. We're going to book everything and see how it compares to your house.
Now, how does the listing agent feel about your
caravan situation? They don't know this is happening. Don't.
Watch out.
I'm now going to start getting calls being like, hey, are you actually seeing this property? Or like, is this a caravan tour?
Yeah.
Sometimes during the caravan tour, we end up buying. It actually does happen. We're like, I know that the property is actually in the mix of the lineup that I set out.
Yeah.
And they end up buying a property day one.
Yeah.
But sometimes they do need to sit on it, which is fine.
Totally.
It's just an educational tour. Learn about what's happening in the market. And in the time, like they also get to understand how I work. I get to understand what they actually want.
Yeah.
So it's not like a few month process. It's submersion. We find out in a day exactly what's happening, exactly what you want. And if it's not on the market, I'm calling every single agent and asking them, what do you have in the pipeline? And do you have this kind of property out there? And if you do, let me know because I have the perfect buyer for this home. So my clients get the jump on it.
Yeah. And I think the big thing is, and I think really what we're drawing to in all of this is I think the most important piece is education is everything in this market. As a seller, it's huge. As a buyer, it's huge. You really cannot overeducate yourself on the market, value, present situations, agency, trust. I mean, we can throw 100 words at people, but it really stems to education, I think.
And there's a very, very big difference between, I don't want to like online, I'm like being very, very careful, online estimations on what properties are worth and what a property is actually worth.
Yes.
You got to remember these online technology platforms, they don't take into consideration what upgrades have been done to the house. If it's on a street that statistically sells for more and they're taking a cluster of all the houses in the neighborhood, it's going to be a little off. The people that know the true value, the people that understand the market value, because there is a difference between market value, are the people that are in this day in, day out, sleep, breathe, eat real estate. Like you and I have been in every house.
Yes. Yeah.
Even if we don't have a buyer, I've been in every house. Like I could go.
I can't say that I've been in that many, but I've been in a lot. Every single house.
When I started, oh my gosh, if there was a listing down my street, up the block, around the corner, I was booking it. I remember that when new construction condos were taking occupancy, I'd sit at my desk, book every single unit in that building and go see it. And then when I had a client that would call me about it, I knew what every single layout in that building looked like. Yeah. Because I studied it.
I studied the market. Have you seen our skyline? Like, hello. Forget the homes for a second. I will bet my bottom dollar you have not been in every condo.
Honestly, I probably have a higher stat on the condos than on the houses.
Okay.
Solely because it's easier to be in a condo building than it is to be on every house on the block.
This is
because
true.
People live in... But condos are generic. They're cookie cutters. You've been in one in this exact same layout. You've seen them all.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Your head can spin. I mean, mine can spin at the end of showing sometimes. And I look at the poor client and they're like, I don't remember the difference between any of them. I'm like, perfect. None of them are right for you.
Well, to be fair, what I usually do with my clients, and I'm sure you do something similar, I tell them rate it out of 10 and don't use 7.
So I always say that's interesting. I don't do the scale. I always say to people, think of the property like a first date. And if you have a first date with somebody, you immediately leave and you go, I am never seeing that person again. Or I'm lukewarm, or like, start the car. When is the next date? So that is my metric for properties.
The funny thing is I put it in somewhat dating terms. And I go, would you date it? Like, would you date a 6? Would you marry a 6? Would you whatever? No.
Not.
So like, are we going to buy a property that is a 6? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
7 is a cop-out number. My clients out there know me. They'll try and use point numbers with me.
So 7.5?
No, they'll be like 6.9. And I'm like, you cannot use the 7. There's only whole numbers. I'm like, but would you date an 8? Would you date a 9? Yes, you would. You would marry an 8 or a 9. So why wouldn't we relook at houses that are 8 or a 9 in your mind?
Yeah.
Like that's a given to me. 10s don't exist. 10s are unicorns.
I mean, people look for unicorns in life, okay?
They don't exist.
I agree.
You cannot have something, even if you have an unlimited budget, you cannot have something that checks off every single box.
And frankly, no matter how great, I mean, I see this all the time. As the budget creeps, I find people go, I still can't find my unicorn. And I'm like, to your point, you can have, I don't even want to throw a number at it, but any or every budget, there is still something where people feel something has to give.
Well, I tell people all the time, it's price, point, location, must-have list. Pick 2 out of the 3.
Yeah.
If your price is fixed and your location is fixed, what gives? Your must-have list.
Yeah.
But if your price is unlimited, even people with unlimited budgets, their must-have list, you can find them the Taj Mahal and they'll still be like, I've got to redo this kitchen. And I'll be like, this is a brand new custom kitchen that costs like $100,000 for them to create. Yep. And you're like, I guess you're redoing the kitchen. Have you budgeted that into this?
$200,000. No.
So that we need to take it out of the price that we're offering them. And I'm like, yeah, but they counted it in the price that they listed it for.
Yes. They
Their
love
custom, beautiful kitchen that is state of the art, that you wave and things open up.
Yeah.
Like a property is only worth at the end of the day what a buyer is willing to pay. But a lot of sellers try and tack on renovations or things that they've done to the property. But there's a big difference between renovations that actually improve your property value and renovations that don't.
We should actually, this is a whole other episode, I think, is talking to renovations where you can add value and where you can't. Because the number of times I have someone call me and go, if I did this, would I? And I'm like, hold right there. That's not where we want to add value. Or yes, dive into that. That's really going to bring up the property value. So I think that's our next topic. And probably on that, I feel like we're getting close to needing to wind this down because we seem to find a way to really get on a roll.
I don't know. You guys don't know this yet, but me and Erica have a way of just like talking for hours together. It happens. We became roommates in New York. Apparently, we can talk real estate until the cows come home. Thank you so much for joining us on our first episode of Property Playbook. We can't wait to see you next week with our guest, Nathan Dart, talking all about final offers. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you like real estate content and want more.